Hello. In the beginning, there was me, Dr. Roger Gewald, with the Gospel according to Dr. Roger, the program where we bring you the unvarnished, absolute truth, unbridled, no gaslighting, no BS, no obfuscation, no political maneuvering. We just tell it like it is, and my guests as well. And speaking of that, I've got a really good guest today, Lee Harris, who is a fellow political commentator and broadcaster, well known on the BBC Radio, that is GB News, and other television and radio outlets, and a big influence on social media, I must say, very popular, Lee, with some very strong views on things. And we're going to talk about a couple of things today. I believe he wants particularly to talk about the child grooming issue and also the UK-US trade deal, which has now been finalized. On the first subject, this, together with the Iran-Israel war, has become a major part of the news cycle at the moment, as we all know. And Baroness Louise Casey's report is just incredible. She did a report in January, which was released in June this month. Unlike so many of these kind of reports, which are released, 8 years later when it's too late to do anything about it. This report has come out and just shown the most horrendous behavior of institutions and officials where child grooming and sexual abuse are concerned. I think personally, I think it's interesting to compare this with Baroness Casey's report a couple of years ago in 2023 about the Metropolitan Police, where she discovered and disclosed institutional racism, misogyny, homophobia, all of these things, which have not been touched upon from an ethnicity or religious background in her latest report, because people seem to have been afraid to gather data on what kind of people were doing these horrible things to children. Were they black, white, Muslim, Hindu, Jew, Christian, Zoroastrian, pagan, Druid, whatever? It's not there. They just didn't mention it. It's unbelievable. They were too timid to go into that. So now that has to be done, and they've changed things. But it's just yet another. I mean, it just seems, if you want to be in journalism, if you want to be in broadcasting, and you want to particularly specialize in scandals, hey, this is the place to be, because we got them almost every week or every fortnight. It's really quite incredible. So, without further delay, I'm going to bring Lee in now, and we're going to see what he has to say about all this, which I'm sure is as strong as my own views. Hey, Lee.
Hey, how you doing?
Lee, I'm looking at the news cycle, and I guess the biggest thing, of course, is the Iran uh, Israel war. But all the grooming stuff and the sheer madness of what the Casey report reveals on mistakes in protecting our children is just, it's breathtaking. And I compare it to what she did a couple of years ago about the Met, about the police,
Mm,
where, she had the data on ethnicity and religion, and she had all that information, and found that uh, the Met was actually institutionally misogynistic and homophobic and racist and all sorts. I
mm,
mean, why the heck they didn't do that in this other area, which is equally as important? but you're something of an expert on this area and the grooming and the Casey report. Explain it all to us because it's baffling how. I mean, what are people just too embarrassed to inquire about these things when they're talking about child sexual abuse or what?
Yeah, I mean this case review, I mean I can't even put into words really how profound this is for multiple reasons. I mean, first off, the review itself. I mean, the fact that I know it's commissioned by Labour. Um, I personally can't see that they predicted that the outcome would be to push the Labour Party into actually having a national inquiry. But I'm not going to say fair play to the Labour Party because obviously they were dragged kicking and screaming
Yeah.
to this conclusion. But it's profound for two kind of main reasons. First off, this is something that the public, I would argue, politicians, basically everybody has known about for many, many, many years. Going back, I think as early as like 2008, possibly even to the late
Well,
90s.
all these things, I'm sorry, all these things are the same. The post office, I mean, they just hang around for decades before somebody does anything about them.
Yeah, yeah, it's very true that we seem to have a problem in this country with inquiries and fixing long-term problems that we just want to
It,
bury it.
it,
It,
it's
it is
the
actually it is a similar mindset.
it's the other side. Forgive me interrupting, but it's I just want to say because it's so important. It's the flip side of the coin that first attracted me to live here is that this is such a tolerant society.
Mm.
We have more eccentrics and eccentricities in this country. We're rich with irony. It's wonderful. But the flip side of that coin is nobody does bugger all about anything when it goes wrong.
Yeah, we don't like admitting our mistakes in this country. We certainly don't like holding people to account,
Yeah.
which is why partly why the case review is so phenomenally important. I mean, like I
Yes.
said, what it's done is it's confirmed that a lot of people who are smeared as being racist over the years for even mentioning the prospect of Pakistani rape gangs have now been, in my view, fully vindicated. And that's why, again, that's partly why this is so profound because so many people have been talking about this and it's been ignored and buried by both the police service, the social services, councillors, predominantly Labour councillors, I might add, um, successive governments. It's all been either ignored or booted in long grass because they do not want to deal with the fact that we have a systemic problem with people who have turned a blind eye to young, vulnerable white British girls being targeted because they are white by Pakistani rape gangs. It's almost like it's been too much of a hot potato for them to want to deal with it. I mean, Labour, I would argue, have a slightly different reason for wanting to boot this into the long grass. Two main reasons. One, they are desperately worried about losing the Muslim vote.
Yeah.
You've got, for example, people like Jess Phillips, who held her seat by 650 odd votes. That's it. And and right up, I think, against her in second place was an independent MP campaigning on Gaza. So, sectarian politics. So there's one reason. Jess Phillips, by all means, is not alone. You look at John Ashworth. John Ashworth was actually he lost his seat to an independent MP campaigning on Gaza. So they're acutely aware of the Muslim vote. I think 84, 85% of the Muslim vote voted for Jeremy Corbyn, for example, when he ran the Labour Party. So there is a huge block of votes that they do not want to lose. And that is partly why it makes my stomach turn, but that is partly why Labour have resisted this national inquiry and resisted, by the way, any kind of investigation for many, many years.
Anything at all. Yeah.
Yes, and to be fair, the Tories didn't do anything about it either. I actually found it in the last 24 hours. I have found it genuinely gut-wrenching watching both the Conservatives and more so the Labour Party pretend like they've wiped 20 years you know, out of our memories somehow. That we're
Absolutely.
not going to remember the fact that both parties were in power and basically allowed this to happen on their
Yeah,
watch.
well, there is no anti-Semitism here, and the last 20 years of this stuff didn't happen, and it did, it's unbelievable what they try to foist on the public.
Yeah, it's just it's disgusting. So you can that is why this Casey review is so hard hitting.
Monumental.
It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And then, of course, for the Casey review to recommend a statutory national inquiry as well, and but essentially forcing Keir Starmer into a humiliating U-turn, again is incredibly
Yeah,
profound. It does.
I wanted to ask you about
Mm,
that. Is it the disaster for labor that it looks? I mean, this man flip-flops, over what he's going to have for breakfast. I mean, he just can't,
mm.
they change their mind if they have one, if they have a mindset about anything other than staying in power, they change it regularly.
Absolutely. Let me be absolutely clear about this. This is a PR disaster of biblical proportions for the
Okay,
Labour Party.
a
And
real disaster.
absolute biblical proportions. Now, the Casey review, well, obviously, I haven't read the whole thing. It's 200 pages long. It's only just come out. I'm going through it, but it heavily implicates predominantly Labour councillors and Labour constituencies where this happened. So again, another reason that was going to be my second reason, apart from the Muslim vote, this this is going to heavily implicate the Labour Party in the complicit cover up and turning of a blind eye to these Pakistani rape gangs.
Yeah.
There is absolutely no doubt about it. We've already seen the figures that this is predominantly happening in Labour areas. So this is I'm almost a little bit shocked that Keir Starmer has allowed himself to be forced into a U-turn. I mean, it's politically impossible for him not to do it, I guess.
Yeah,
But
sure.
it is astounding that because let's not forget one of the and this has been Keir Starmer has been pushed on this publicly by journalists. So this isn't just me saying this. This has also come from Maggie Oliver, who has been absolutely. I mean, if we have an honour system for any reason, it should be to give people like her a damehood, without a doubt. But
Mm.
even Maggie Oliver has called out Keir Starmer directly because he was the head of Director of Public Prosecutions. He was in the hot seat for a lot of this. And this inquiry, this statutory inquiry, could well, in fact, not could, will almost certainly expose Keir Starmer's own failings as DPP. So that is why this is a PR disaster for the Labour Party, because their party is implicated. They have been complicit in this across all areas of the country where this has been a major problem. And Keir Starmer himself was director of public prosecutions for a major part of this. So
Yeah.
they're up to their necks in it.
And how does it impact the Tories and reform?
Mm.
And I guess the Lib Dems to the extent that they matter.
Yeah, true. I mean, the Lib Dems are pretty insignificant in all of this. And I mean, it was rightly called out. So Kemi Badenoch yesterday in the House of Commons called out the Lib Dems actually specifically for completely abstaining
Yeah.
on the vote. So
Yeah.
yeah, they
The
effectively
Tories are toast.
yeah,
The Lib Dems are blancmange,
absolutely
and
yeah.
Labor's a crap Suzette.
That's a very good analogy for all three there. Yeah, very good. Um, yeah, I mean the Tories. Yes, the Tories can come out of this looking out. No, let me rephrase that. They've recovered a little bit of credibility in as much as that at least the Tories tried to vote through and push through this national statutory inquiry. Okay,
Mhm.
so they did that. It's very convenient, obviously, that the Conservatives are in opposition at the moment, because let's face it, they could have easily been sat where Labour's sitting, and that report would have still been exactly the same.
Oh,
And they were in power for 14 years.
yep.
They
How
did
true.
nothing, Roger.
Nothing,
They did
nothing
absolutely nothing.
on so many different topics, but this one really winds me up, Lee, because this one is about our children. I mean,
Yeah.
this is not postmistresses, and this is not bank customers, and this is not rail passengers. I mean, they just screwed up everything for 14 years and lied to us about it.
Yeah.
But this is different. This is our kids, and it makes you want to gnash your teeth and go out and kill, not go out and kill, go out and yell.
Yeah. I
It makes you want.
Metaphorically, I know what you mean.
No, I mean
Absolutely.
it just it's little defenseless children, for goodness sake, and think about what's happening to them.
Mm. I'll
It's
come on to
so, how could anybody hide this for longer than 5 minutes?
exactly. I mean, I'll come on to reform in a second, but just to very quickly stay on the Conservatives, this is why, I mean, I'll talk my own personal feelings. This is why I have a major problem with the Conservatives, is they allowed, almost like the left wing Marxist march through the institutions. All of the things that we despise about this country, our civil service being completely infested with woke left wing ideology, our education system, the policing, our two-tier policing, the justice system, the sentencing, all of this kind of injustice happened on the Conservatives' watch. You're right to say they were asleep at the wheel. And this is yet another thing that happened on their watch and they did absolutely nothing about. So I've got to admit, Kemi did very well in the Commons yesterday, but I still found it gut wrenching listening to the Conservatives somehow trying to have the moral high ground on this issue when they are equally as culpable, not quite as equally as culpable, but very close to being equally as culpable
No,
as the Labour Party.
it's the uniparty. Come on, you can't,
Absolutely.
as Farage, I think it was, said, you can't slip a highly taxed cigarette paper between them.
No, yeah, you can't. Absolutely right. Now, yeah, speaking of Farage, now reform on this, I think obviously reform are very well placed. They are, they aren't a tested party. They've never held office. That's part of their appeal, and it's also part of their weakness. The fact that they haven't held office, so we can't really. They've never held a local council until the most recent local elections.
Yeah.
So they have a clean slate in this. I believe that is again a running theme with reform and why people are potentially looking to vote reform because they aren't tested and because they aren't associated with this 20, 30 years of lies and failure from
No,
from the uni
let
party.
me stop you right there. And once they get into office, do you think they'll turn out to be like all the other politicians, or will they actually be different?
Massive question. I've spoke about this a lot recently. Don't prejudge something that we haven't seen yet.
Obviously.
So there is a chance of that, Roger. Of course there is. I mean, I made a mistake many times.
I'm not prejudging. I'm just asking your guess.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Fair question. It's a very good question.
You're just telling me that's a good question. I'm asking you for the answer.
Okay, the answer is no. I think that it's a personal answer because it's a
Sure,
guess,
of
right?
course.
My personal opinion is I don't think they will know because I think that part of reform's appeal, a big part of their appeal, is that they are trying to be different, obviously, than the uni party. I think Nigel Farage himself even coined the uni. I might be wrong on that, but he might have coined the uni party phrase. The point is that reform are not tainted by historical precedent on this. So I think they will make a point of being different. I think that they will do things that should have been done, even if it's politically expedient to do, just for that reason alone. I don't care what their reasons are,
Just for
as
what
long as
reason?
they
Just for what reason alone?
the the fact that let's just say
Why will they do things differently?
I think they'll do things differently because they know why people have major complaints about the previous two parties. I think if anyone is aware, Reform, Nigel Farage are acutely aware and have based their entire campaign on being different from those two parties. Can I see them getting into office and then just repeating all of the mistakes that the uni parties made? It could happen, but I just can't see it.
I'm asking for your view. I mean, all of that has not prevented politicians, many of them being what rhymes with the merchant bankers for many, 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 many decades, despite the knowledge of what went before them. I've
Mm.
just got a huge number of followers and such fans and people who just constantly say to me, why is it going to be any different? How do you know these people, Roger, Dr. Roger, aren't going to turn out exactly the same? Wake up and smell the coffee. And I haven't really got a great answer for them.
I, I'd like to think I have a great answer, and I like to think that that people will think about it like this. There's one thing that people can answer safely, and the question that they can answer safely is it going to improve if we vote back in Labour or Conservative? And I think that what we're seeing from the polls, and certainly what we're seeing from the way that the political landscape has changed, voters are much more promiscuous now. Voters are much more likely to consider voting for a third party because they're utterly fed up with 100 years of entitled two-party rule.
They're fed up, but I'm asking you about the politicians. Listen, I interviewed Nigel. People should go and watch this interview. It's
I've
very
seen it.
entertaining. Just Google my surname, Gewolb, Gewolb, and Farage. Google those two words and you ought to get it on YouTube. I interviewed him on the subject of why are our leaders so bad in the West generally? And he had a great answer. He said, because in the old days, we had people who wanted to put something back after having been accomplished. Harry Truman, President Eisenhower, people like that, Trump. Now we've got Oxbridge PPE professional politicians like Sunak who just care about votes and staying in office. And that's why we've got the bad quality that we do. And I think that's the issue. So you've got to really look at the fact that Nigel is certainly not one of those people, but how many other people are going to be working reform politicians who aren't from that mold that he talked about?
Yeah, and it's a very, very well answered question.
Yeah,
He's got a very good point. Um, and reform, you'd like to think are different. I mean, some people have criticised Nigel Farage. He went to a private school,
yeah,
very well to do, kind of
yeah, yeah.
early start in life. But I
Dulwich and
just
all that.
stick the way I view it is I completely agree with him. But I also just completely I think reform are going to collect a lot of votes with people having that question unanswered in their minds. There's going to be a lot of people that will vote for reform without being able to answer the question whether they are going to deliver. And
Correct.
I think there's going to be a percentage of people they'll collect the votes anyway, and I think people are just going to be very, very vocal about holding them to account. What one thing that I think is
Give them a chance because we know how bad the other two are going to be.
exactly, exactly. And there's logic to that, right?
Yeah,
There is absolute logic to that. It's kind of
absolutely.
where I'm at. It's kind of where I'm at. There is no way that I could consider voting for either of those two parties. Certainly not in the near future. I certainly won't be at the next election.
Hmm.
How can you possibly vote to reward that amount of failure and that amount of lies? It just doesn't compute in my head. And now the public have just found out, or at least some of the normies who didn't know about this have just found out that we've had the systematic rape and torture of young British girls that's happened over decades while those two parties have been in power. Now there is a third option. There is someone untested who's making all the right sounds, who's saying all the right things mostly, and is there waiting in the wings with 30+% in a poll of polls.
And who's building up a really good grassroots network of local chairmen and associations
Exactly.
and all the rest.